Hello guys, Dan here from Dan's Tech, and in today's video guys I'm going to be bringing you the £600 gaming PC for 2016. As always, I just want to reiterate, this series is me showing you which parts you should choose for a system, and if anything, this kind of gives you the peace of mind when buying the components, building the PC and knowing that everything's going to be compatible. So this build does contain the Intel Core i5-4590. This is a 3.3GHz chip. It is a quad core, and yeah, it does turbo to 3.7GHz. Also for the graphics, we're going to be choosing the MSI R9 380, that's a 4GB card with over 1790 cores. It is pretty damn fast, and with this build being a little bit more expensive, we are going to be choosing the Hyper 212 Evo cooler by Cooler Master. Just makes a little bit of sense, and if anything, would just make you, just allow you to do a little bit of overclocking, and so if you're not wanting to do that, we'll just make your system run a little bit quieter, which is always very nice. Anyway, let's kind of get into the video, and yeah, let me guys show you what I've chose for this £600 gaming PC. To get started for the CPU, we're going to be grabbing the i5-4590. This chip is a quad core and runs at a frequency of 3.3GHz with a turbo frequency of 3.7GHz when temperatures and power permit. Now this CPU runs on socket LG1150 and is rated at 84 watts TDP. This will be plenty fast for the build and should even allow some flexibility for upgrading the GPU to say GTX 980 or say the R9 290X if wanted in the future. As mentioned in the intro, at this price point it makes quite a bit of sense to use a decent cooler to cool the system, so we're going to be grabbing the Cooler Master Hyper 212 Evo cooler. Now this cooler really doesn't need an introduction as it's so popular, however few peeps have never heard of it. It's a single tower cooler that sports a single 120mm fan, features many aluminium fins and 4 direct touch copper heat pipes. The best part about this cooler is that it's usually around £28 and performs very well for the price. Moving on to the motherboard, we're going to be grabbing the MSI H97 PCMate ATX board. This full-sized ATX board comes in at a decent price of £65. Now this board does pack support for the i5-4590 CPU as mentioned, and has support for lots of higher end CPUs on this platform thanks to the vast amount of chips Intel has already created for the 4th and 5th generation. Now this board supports up to 32GB of RAM via 4 DIMM sockets, has support for many expansion cards featuring 2 PCI Express x16 slots, 2 PCI Express x1 slots, as well as 2 PCI slots for legacy cards. This board does also support Crossfire, and as for all the ports, this motherboard has a total of 6 SATA 6GB ports, features 8 USB 2 ports as well as 4 USB 3 ports. Moving swiftly onto the RAM, for this build I've opted to go with 8GB of Kingston HyperX Fury memory. All memory these days is pretty solid, and this series of memory has been tested by myself in a couple of builds already and is overall very solid. The speed of this memory is 1600 MHz with a cast latency of CL10. Overall a good choice and solid for around £28. Many other colour options are available for £1 or £2 more. Today the black colour is on promo for £24. As for storage, we're going to be picking up a standard 1TB hard drive from Seagate. I got a couple of these in my machine already and overall do work very well for the price. Main specs include 1TB capacity, 7200 RPM spin speed and 64MB of cache. For all builds with a higher price point, you'll start seeing an introduction to solid state drives. Moving on to the most important part of the build is the GPU. For this build I've opted for the AMD R9 380. Now this dual fan MSI variant of the card features 4GB of video RAM and 1792 cores running at a base frequency of 1GHz. Unfortunately this card doesn't feature a boost frequency, however you'll find many recent AMD cards simply don't have this feature. As for outputs, this card features a single DisplayPort and HDMI connector and 2 DVI ports, one being DVI-I and the other DVI-D. For you guys interested, 4K at 60Hz is supported via the DisplayPort connector. For £180 this is a pretty damn good deal and will be a very solid card for high detail 1080p gaming. Moving on to the case, I've chosen the Corsair 200R. This is a compact ATX case in black and does feature a windowed side panel. Now as for the features and the specs, first up for the fans. This comes with 220mm fans, one set up as an intake and the other as a rear exhaust with support for many more. Now as for storage, this case does sport room for 4 conventional 3.5-inch hard drives and 4 SSDs at the same time thanks to the separate dedicated SSD and hard drive mounts, of which all are toolless. You also find room for 3 optical disk drives at the top. The front features 2 USB 3 ports in addition to the standard HDMI connectors and power and reset buttons merged into one. As for the component clearances, graphic card and power supply clearance is essentially unlimited, with the CPU cooler clearance being a pretty average 16.5cm, however enough for the Hyper 212 Evo cooler to be installed. Currently the windowed and non-windowed version are both £55, so take your pick. Lastly, onto the power supply, we'll be grabbing the Corsair CX500. This is a very popular series from Corsair and does deliver great efficiency thanks to its bronze certification and the installed 120mm fan. This power supply comes with all the connectors needed for this build, including 4 4-pin peripheral connectors, 2 PCI Express connectors, and 5 SATA connectors. So guys, there are all the parts for this £600 gaming PC. This build was under by about £3, so that's all good there. I do try and stick to the price point, but sometimes you just can't, can you? But yeah, this build, i5 4590 and also the i9 380 4GB card. This system will work very, very well. As I said, with all these kind of builds in this series, these PCs are kind of tuned very highly towards gaming, and it is going to get you some really, really good value for money. This build, as I said, £400 under, you're going to get some very nice performance with this build, solid 1080p gaming, and hopefully be nice and quiet as well with that good old Hyper 212 Evo. Anyway guys, thank you very much for watching. Feel free to go, give this video a good old like. If you have any questions or comments in the comment section, and yeah, if you wanted to buy any of these parts or even all of them, there will be links to Amazon UK and US in the good old description. Anyhow, thank you very much for watching, and yeah, I'll see you guys in my next video. Goodbye.